Yeah, let's get going. All right, thanks everyone for joining. Super happy to have you here for the, what month is it? March, Patch Tuesday support group. This is a safe place to apply patches and complain about having to apply patches. Super excited this month to not be on the Microsoft campus like everyone else that's joining me today. I am from home, but our illustrious Jake and Jordan, who've always joined us, they are joining us live from Microsoft campus, as is Adam Nichols and Kip Oppalfens. We're glad to have you guys. Thanks for finding a space to join us. We're going to do what we usually do. We're going to start with Jordan talking a little bit about the vulnerabilities that have been released. Vulnerabilities aren't released. The vulnerabilities, the patches, and the vulnerabilities released a couple of days ago. I'll talk about some news, and then we'll hand it over to Adam and Kim. They're going to arm wrestle to figure out who goes first. I believe Adam is going to talk a little bit to us about Autopatch, and Kim's going to just complain and whine. Sound like a plan?
Doesn't sound like something Kim would ever do.
Yeah. All right. Over to you,
Early
Jordan.
morning, so I'm on top of my game.
All right, is this okay? Can you guys hear me if I'm talking to Jake's mic? Cool, awesome. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this month. I'm only going to talk about the Microsoft patch notes this time. We will still have the Patch My PC third-party ones on the website after the webinar and later on. Just because we had a great opportunity here to talk with people from Microsoft, and we're here on campus, we can answer some more questions, and we just want to take advantage of that. That being said, in terms of the patches that came out earlier this week, we had 64 unique CVEs this month. Of those unique CVEs, we had 2 critical, 58 important, and if you're keeping track at home, 0 moderate, and 2 NA, which is actually really good compared to the last several months where we were all going, oh god, another exchange patch. So good job. I don't know what you've been doing or what you've been putting in the cereal or the snacks around here, but it's great.
It's definitely in the water.
Spoiler, there's another exchange patch.
Hey, don't. Anyways, so in terms of those CVEs, what are we worried about? There are 6 that are a denial of service, 24 that are an elevation of privilege, 6 that result in information disclosure, 18 that are remote code execution, 3 security feature bypasses, 2 spoofing, and 1 tampering. Not too terribly much in terms of anything to really note about them, but I did have 2 things I want to highlight. The first one is Windows KB 5035849. Again, that's KB 5035849. This is a patch that was designed for Server 2019, as well as the LTSC version of Windows 10. And apparently, it helps if you install servicing stacks. There was a servicing stack from August last year. If you missed that servicing stack, the update will not install from the Windows Update service, but it will install from WSOS apparently. So you should make sure that you're patching your servicing stacks is the moral to take away from that. But if you are getting a large number of 00034 errors on LTSCs because you, for some reason, are running Server 2019 and LTSC, which maybe don't, unless you really have to, you might be getting an error. The one other one I wanted to highlight, especially if you are running SCCM still in your environment, is there is a major remote code vulnerability that came out. This is CVE 2024-21334. This impacts SCCM 2019 and SCCM 2022, and it impacts the OMI component of it. It is ranked as a 9.8 on the CVS score this month. So out of everything that they had, those were kind of the big things from the Microsoft patches to start looking at and being aware of. And everything else from a Patch Tuesday perspective for the last month for Patch My PC Notes, we will get on the website afterwards. And I'm going to turn it over to Bryan or Adam or Kim.
Rush them both? I'll go first. Okay, thank you, sir. Well, I thank you guys for inviting, having us on the call, primarily myself, more so than Kim, to talk a little bit about Patch My PC, Windows Autopatch, about some of the services that we provide. And for many of the folks on this call, I know that, we all spend a lot of time with patch management. And we all spend a lot of time, like Jordan, puts a lot of time into evaluating the updates, preparing for Patch Tuesday, crossing your fingers, and then watching as that rolls out to your environment. And as you guys know, within Microsoft, we're always looking for ways to provide more value to our customers and do more with less. And so Windows Autopatch is a product that is available to all of our enterprise customers. So that means any customer that has purchased Windows Enterprise E3 is entitled to this service called Windows Autopatch, available in the Intune portal. And really our goal from Windows Autopatch is to take the effort and the time out of Patch Tuesday so that you as admins can focus on things that are truly impactful to your business. We think patching should become easy, should become an afterthought, and shouldn't be something, unfortunately, maybe one day blogs or podcasts like this are no longer necessary. That'd be great. For those of you wondering kind of what Windows Autopatch does, we are simply a service that simplifies the organization of patch management in your organization. We, from the Intune side, configure policies. We configure your update rings, we push out your updates, and then we provide you rich reporting that gives you that confidence that you can take back to your leadership to say, yes, we are up to date. And if there is something that goes wrong, which, sometimes things don't always work perfectly in a Windows environment, believe it or not, we actually have a dedicated staff of engineers that take our support requests that work only on Windows updates to help you resolve those issues in your organization. Because of the way we go about doing this, helping you identify failures, helping you identify misconfigurations, many of our customers and organizations that have come onto this service in the last 2 years have seen dramatic rise in update compliance using the service. So from the Microsoft service, this is something that we love to help evangelize more and get out there to our customers, to the people that are using the service to find more value and just really make your life easier. I'm reading some of the posts in chat, which are making me laugh a little bit.
Never read the comments, Adam. Never read the comments.
I'm saying
that's rule number one.
I mean, that's awesome. Well, and you may not be able to. You may not.
You should just come to this more often, mate.
Well, you may not be able to answer this one, Adam. But one of them says, like, will A3.5 ever get auto patch, or is that like hey, reach out to your licensing team and ask them?
E5 is available for auto patch.
They're saying A3 and A5.
A3, A5. There's actually some really cool stuff coming around A3. A3 is one of those things, and a lot of people have been asking us about it. We've been evaluating how to step into that segment a little bit more. As we know, with academic, the licensing, the costs there are awesome. We dramatically reduce the cost there. The problem is as you offset that with a service like Autopatch, where we're actually spending quite a bit of money on the Microsoft side for that service. We've got to find a way to make that work. And there are going to be some features that are going to be available in the next couple months that helps with that. That we've talked about with the new unification experience coming later this year that we announced at Ignite last year. So some features, some capabilities, some additional love there. It's not going to be the entire Autopatch suite, as we've said before, but yeah, there's some good stuff coming.
And I see like another one here, like any news for like GCC folks?
Yeah, we have nothing I can officially say today on GCC, but there is going to be, that's definitely something that, is coming in the future.
Or when BIOS updates, that's always a hot topic.
BIOS updates, driver integration is another great one. You guys, our announcement with unification is a really great one that we made, and it's work that's underway right now that we've announced about merging Windows Update for Business delivery services and Windows Autopatch into a single service. So as that evolves further, we're gonna have more updates around that. For those of you on the service today, you'll see additional capabilities just light up. For those that you enroll at that time, you'll see a lot greater, richer integration with features like drivers and firmware. So lots of really great stuff coming. Really no downside to using the service today that we can see. You're just going to have additional benefits come as we start rolling them out.
There was one other piece of feedback here was around controlling rings. So what does rings look like? Are there any opportunities for things like rings or like rollout plans inside of it? Was it, somebody said there was like a non-starter, it flagged as a non-starter. Has there been any thought about that?
A lot, actually. A year ago now, just about a year ago, July, we introduced the ability for you to create your own custom Autopatch groups and custom ring schedules. We recently just posted an update in our docs and an announcement that when we look at our service level objectives, so this is our metric of whether we're doing a good job or not. So everybody has a metric that the organization holds them to. We look at 95% by the end of your patch period. And we evaluate that based on that custom schedule that you set. So really it's around focusing on, tools that make the admin's lives easier, focus on the reality of the effort that everyone's putting in there and simplifying that to hopefully we get to that point where.
Yeah, there's up two other good ones in here. I mean, they always ask like server OS. Is that thing, or is it go to or Azure Arc, anything like that?
I don't really have a whole lot to say on server OS. It's not really my area. It's not an area that we focus on from the Windows Autopatch side. But it's definitely an interesting one because it does take a lot of work, especially for our admins patching Windows Server. It takes a special level of care in many cases and a lot of extra effort. So it's definitely something that's interesting to look into.
Gotcha. And then another one doesn't work in a co-managed state, I assume. If you have your WFB slider moved over, we're good, right?
Good.
Yeah.
And even the cool thing about that is for those of you who are using SCCM and maybe have moved that slider over for WFB today, you might find that there was some challenges there. And a lot of your environments, you had conflicting configurations that sometimes SCCM laid down on the device. God forbid SCCM tattoos a setting on the device.
It's never done that before.
No.
Not ever. It's not really sticky.
Autopatch can help identify, and we do this, but with the service we call conflicting configurations. We released it about a year ago, and it'll just notify you if you have configurations legacy from SCCM that are preventing this from working properly. So the great thing about that is once you enroll into the service, that report will just start generating and let you know which ones. And we actually have remediation steps right on our docs page that you can use Intune remediations to clean it up. Dramatic. This is all part of our culture within Autopatch is collecting feedback from our customers, from the community, and turning that into features in the product. We just love hearing from everybody. Communities like this is a good one because it helps us build a better product. So.
And I think we'll do one more here. I see, everyone's always asking about reporting. Like, is there going to be any additional reporting with Autopatch?
That's my baby.
Oh, there you go.
Reporting is my
baby. We got the right question.
Finally got it.
Yep.
We found.
And what was your email again, Adam? So everyone can shoot you. Yeah.
And he owns up to it.
It's Bryan Dam at Patch.
Yeah.
Lots of great stuff. It's amazing the investment and the value that our leadership has seen with reporting. If you guys have watched some of the work that we've done in reporting in the last 2 months, we turned down the time it took to refresh data into our reports from 24 hours to 30 minutes. And we did that last month. That was huge. Our dev team put a lot of work into that. We restructured how we did a lot of things. This month, we sync data from Intune to provide reporting, and we're cutting that time down from 8 hours to 1 hour. So we're talking about the realistic time to come in from one service to show your compliance has dropped almost by 6 times. So, or 6-fold, or a multiplier of 6. I don't know how you would. Forgive me for my math. I just work in
It's early.
Yeah.
600%.
600%. There we go. But this is all because the feedback and our community, and you will be seeing new reports. That reporting component expand, especially with unification. We're looking at, very rich in depth, and if there's feedback, we'd love to hear it on our community. If you guys want to learn more about Windows Autopatch, go to ak.ms Windows Autopatch. There's a lot of great resources on there. So,
all right,
Awesome.
thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Feel free to continue asking questions in the chat if you want. Do you have access to that, Adam? I don't know. We'll start answering them if we need to.
Yeah, I got
But,
access to it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to share.
It's fine.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll do a rundown of the recent news as long as I can find. There we go. That's the right one. All right, so Jordan already kind of preempted this one, but I found this interesting. Literally, at the very date and time that they released patches this week, they updated. They sent a message out in Message Center talking about what Jordan mentioned, which is like, hey, these patches might not actually download, which I thought was funny. Like literally the moment they released them, they sent out a message saying, hey, by the way, these may not work. And this impacts specifically here Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC 2019 and Windows Server 2019, as Jordan mentioned. In theory, this was fixed the very next day, though. So yes, it was a problem on initial release. And this is only going to impact devices that were pointed at Windows Update, as Jordan mentioned. But in theory, that got fixed yesterday. So if you had any early failures, those should be resolved at this point. The next thing I want to talk about is there is an Exchange server update this month, because of course there is. And it does resolve an important security vulnerability, but also know that it has one known issue and one that's an issue but not known. So it will break if you're using. So if you're using Exchange on-prem, you should probably just not be doing that anyways. But if you are, just know that this breaks downloading attachments, I believe, if you're from OWA. But it also seems to be breaking Outlook search if they're pointed at a on-prem Exchange server. So you have to kind of look at this one and decide what you want to do, whether you're worried about the vulnerability more than the usability impact on that one. The other one that I had, which was is that the February 2024 security update might fail to install. This is for Windows 11. So this, again, got released March, or they updated this to fix this issue. This has to do with the WinRE, but it's not the issue you think it is. We'll talk about that next. We've been talking about that for like 3 months ever since Microsoft released those patches for WinRE, and it's gone poorly. There was an issue in February where there was this secret or hidden WinRE folders on your root of your C drive, and that caused issues getting February CU to install. They fixed that in March, so you should be fine. If it's not for some reason, though, the workaround is, well, just go find that folder and whack it, and you should be fine. Moving along, talking about that. So again, we're talking about this KB 503-4441, which is this whole the Windows recovery partition there's a BitLocker vulnerability, and the fix for it is, there's a BitLocker vulnerability, and it involves the exploit involves WinRE, getting into the Windows recovery mode to exploit that. And so the solution, the patch, needs to update the Windows WinRE binaries on your WinRE partition. And we've talked about that a lot in the last few months, so you can go back and watch those previous webinars. We really went into depth on that. The key thing, though, is people keep kind of hoping that Microsoft's going to fix it, that somehow they're going to re-release this patch and that's just going to make all these problems go away. I have confirmed privately that is not going to happen. I know a couple of people that have had tickets, and Microsoft has said that. So I'm sorry, I don't have the deets to show you that that's true. Like, I don't have a public announcement saying, yeah, we're not going to fix this in the way you want us to fix this. But that is true. If you're holding off on this, hoping that some month Microsoft would release a new version that makes all these problems go away, it is not going to happen. Here's a blog post talking about what you kind of have to do, which is you're going to have to go mess with partitions and rearrange and resize your WinRE partition to make sure that this update will install. Again, the meat of this is if you were waiting for Microsoft to fix this for you, it's not going to happen. If you care, you're going to have to do it yourself. So moving along, oh look, we're going to move into some more security focused things here. Just notice, I mean, not that this is a new thing, but apparently there was some systematic GitHub, not attack, but just a lot of forking. There's a lot of forking going on. And they were forking tons and tons of projects, and of course, putting malicious code in there. And all of that to say, make sure that if you are downloading or using something from GitHub, that it is the actual official repo, which can sometimes be difficult to know, but it is important that you take a track of that. Related, tangentially relates to this, Morris Daly released a new version of the driver automation tool. This is well known and well used for ConfigMgr customers. And so there's a new version out of it. I don't even know what all the new features are. I think a lot of it often has to do with updating to what Dell, HP, Lenovo, et al. Do on their end. One thing I will mention is that the install for this has been flagged by VirusTotal, which means by a lot of AV scanners as having malicious code. And it really has to do with the fact that there's a PowerShell script in here. Well, the whole thing is PowerShell based, and it downloads content from the internet, which is exactly the point of this tool. The point of this tool is to be a piece of PowerShell that downloads driver packs from the internet. And so
we're going to interrupt you, Brian, because Jordan has something he wants to say.
Yeah. And this is something that's interesting, just as in general, like as a trend, as a whole, is there's actually a pattern in Defender, like in Defender ATP, right? Like PowerShell downloading things from the internet, turns out arbitrarily is, not great. Especially when those have like encoded commands inside of them. One of the like leading methodologies of how a ransomware attack starts most of the time is that you will see PowerShell commands that are running encoded download commands. In order to download things, they shouldn't be downloading from locations they shouldn't be downloading from. So, like, this is a totally legitimate use, though, of this. Like, we use this all the time. We use PowerShell, we use curl commands. Everybody does this all the time from the infrastructure. It's not an uncommon practice. But it's a super, interesting that the paradigm in the industry is starting to shift towards, whoa, everybody's suddenly catching up. Because this used to be something that gets flagged. Like I said, this gets flagged in Defender ATP all the time. If you have developers in your environment and you have E5 and you are running ATP, they will get flagged at some point whenever they install Visual Studio, because Visual Studio, when you do an install of Visual Studio, runs encoded commands in PowerShell to download the plugins underneath it, which is ransomware behavior, literally, for it. And so it actually gets caught on the same paradigm. So it's interesting to see the shift in the industry above and beyond just some of the XDRs to the actual VirusTotal platform and the other platforms now that, hey, downloading things from the internet is using PowerShell and other untrusted code or just unsigned code or whatever arbitrary code on a box is maybe
not great. Yeah,
we should do that, or maybe we should, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how do we build ways to build that trust to convince the XDRs to convince those solutions, because this is a great tool. People should absolutely be using this. If they're using ConfigMgr and you need drivers, you should use this. It will make your life easier and better if you're trying to use massive driver catalogs from all the third-party OEMs. You should use this. How do we build a paradigm of trust, right?
Well, someone that might be active in that field might say, well, maybe you should build that paradigm of trust with some allow listening technology.
What's that technology?
Would you like to make a suggestion, Kim?
Does it start with a W and then DAC at the end?
Yeah. It is obviously where PowerShell constrained language would be incredibly valuable, where you could say, look, this is script I trust. I know Maurice. He's been doing this for years. Great stuff. I'll sign this, or Maurice signs it, and I trust Maurice's certificate. And all of those ransomware things, even if they're code signed, I don't trust their code signing certificate, so they won't run. Instead of, because what Defender for Endpoint tries to do in its best possible way is this behavior trustworthy, yes or no? But that's hard to do, as you say, if we're using exactly the same behavior, because it's just sensible things to do. Download things from the internet. Every once in a while, there's a good reason for that, need for that. So if you can distinguish between those two, you can do that with application allowed listing and you setting the trust, which again helps Defender for Endpoint tremendously, because then it knows, oh, this looks like ransomware behavior, but I also have a signal that it was chosen to be trusted. So it's probably a non-issue.
And what I think is interesting, and what I think is going to be culturally interesting here, is recently, as the last 7 months, is the certificate providers have made it exponentially more difficult to get public code sign certificates.
Yeah, and random story here, but some people make it exceptionally difficult for themselves. I had to renew my code signing certificate.
You made something difficult for yourself, Kim?
Yeah, back home, I have people living back home that if they see a number that they don't recognize, especially a foreign number, they'll just block it. Now, to get your code signing certificate,
You have to answer a phone call.
you have to answer a phone call on a landline typically, so that they know you're actually at the location where all of the rest of your documentation points to. Guess what? If you start blocking the phone number that is supposed to call you, that provides certain challenges to getting that certificate released.
Imagine.
And for anybody who's also just kind of playing along at home in regards to the certificate changes that have recently occurred from the standards, if you didn't know, you can no longer get a code signing certificate unless it is backed by an HSM. It must now be backed by an HSM. So if you want to go to DigiCert, any of the public key providers, you have to provide it by some type of a hardware security module. It either needs to be the USB token that they will provide to you, or it has to be something that you get from like Azure, or using like an Azure or an AWS or whatever key vault and store it in there. In order to implement that, and this is extra bonus points important, you must have somebody with a CISSP certification audit and review your environment and provide a letter of attestation for it before DigiCert or one of those providers will issue it to you if you do not buy the physical token. So getting the certificate above and beyond the verification of trying to get a phone call and everything else, you have to go find somebody that has that from the ISA certificate to get a letter of attestation for it as well. Getting code signing certificates is getting hard. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's harder to get a certificate in the first place, right? And now we have this new pattern of behavior where we don't trust things that we trusted before to download stuff from the internet. Apparently, we never should have invented the internet. And figure
It was
out
a mistake. I think we
It
should
was.
all agree that the internet
All of us
was
talking to
really
each
a
other.
mistake.
But I mean, let's, on the positive side of all that, it is a much more difficult process to get into.
Right.
But companies like DigiCert have done a good job that renewals are generally less painful. Once you're already in there. So once you go through that process, working with like a trusted vendor makes it a lot easier.
renewal is a lot easier. Well, I shouldn't say a lot easier because they kept thinking that our location was a gas station down the street. The last time I tried to renew our internal code signing certificate, they're like, "You're not here. You're a gas station." And I'm like, "No, it's the building down the road from that because of where our physical address for our building is." But yeah, for the most part, it is a lot easier once you get it, and it's the getting started. And it's good to add that level of friction, but it does make it difficult for content creators, for example, and stuff like that, or
Community activists and everything else. Yeah.
It does make it harder for them, and we're gonna have to figure out ways to empower and enable that without losing some of that flexibility and losing that protection as well.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
the hard
code
neck
signing
is
certs, they're hard. There's a new version of the driver automation tool. It is going to throw all sorts of warnings at you if you look at VirusTotal. Expect that. Decide upon yourself. Our lawyers would recommend we don't tell you what to do, but decide for yourself if those are false positives and whether you want to continue running that. Oh, great. You leave. Just briefly, I'm not going to dig into this. There was a fun man-in-the-middle phishing attack, and it really involves like, hey, if you like have a open Wi-Fi and you trick some people to go to it when they start charging their Teslas, you can possibly just take them over and run off with them, which sounds interesting. If you have one, maybe care. Another one that's made the rounds, breachers expose Microsoft config manager misconfigs. A bit of a nothing burger if you've been around for any length of time. In fact, we have Kim, who's done multiple like storming the castle sessions before. But basically, some guys made a GitHub repo and just like in depth have cross-referenced all the kind of ways you might get credentials out of config manager, or the fun things you can do if you can get on the primary site server as admin. And all of these things are like well known. If you specifically network NAA, network authentication account, no, network access accounts. That's it. They're bad in general, but if you have them, make sure they're not domain admins. Like it's just, nothing here is particularly new, but somebody wrote a blog realizing that, hey, if you can get in a config manager, you can do awful things. And people are like, oh, like none of this is new. Like literally none of this is new. It's old info. And yes, absolutely. If somebody gets local administrator on your primary site server, it is basically game over. That is kind of generally 100% true. If you have, if they now have access to the config manager database, same kind of deal. And there are, the new thing or.
1 sec, Brian. Kim wants to chat here.
Some new things in there, but yeah, so we've done a session on this like 6-7 years ago, defending the castle, where we pretty much had a session on a number of these things that have now been made world public, where we said it's amazing how long ConfigMgr has escaped the scrutiny of security research. And that was pretty much our message back then. This is not gonna last. Someone's gonna figure out that just about every enterprise device with Windows on it has this agent, and that a lot of misconfigs that we saw in the field actually happen. So there's a couple of new things that are in there, but just about all of them are based on vulnerabilities in the NTLM authentication and NTLM relay. Stop it. The ConfigMgr documentation has, since day one, said that you need to enable mutual authentication on all of your communication between the ConfigMgr components. So if you enable SMB signing, then just about all of the attacks here go away. So that will be our message in May, because of all of this was eventually happening. We decided to redo our defending the castle session with all of this information, but we'll obviously do this side thing. Like if you hadn't misconfigured this would not happen. If you had implemented this security measure, which is in the docs and has been for an eternity, then this would not happen. That's pretty much what needs to happen. So if you have a properly configured environment, then indeed this is a no issue.
And to their credit, right? Like even bleeping computer, which sometimes tends to be a little clickbaity. Like even hey, the title's at least honest. Like this is a misconfiguration. It's not actually something that's inherent. It's not the violent inherent in the system. It's not that the code is wrong. It's just you can make a network access account and give a domain admin. Like that's dumb. Don't do that. But at the same time, this is whether we love or hate it. Like setting up a config manager is a complex thing with a lot of things to concern about, and it's somewhat easy, especially in that initial install. Just be like, well, whatever, we'll just do the easy thing, and that might be the insecure thing. So worth calling out.
Again. 1 second, Brian.
And I would be amiss being the the Microsoft guy in the call here to not like make that call out to. I mean, for those admins out there that are looking for ways to manage, these are things to consider in terms of effort to reward. That there are tools, there are right tools for certain jobs. If like patching is your thing, and I'm saying this because I'm from Windows Autopatch, if patching is the thing that you're going for, the tools and the advancements around cloud patching with WFB and Windows Autopatch might be the way you want to look into, other than a lot of complexity. Now, if you need to do very granular things in air-gapped environments with very specific workloads, we talked about this, Jordan. Those, cloud patching is not a tool that's going to solve that problem. There are other tools out there that come with certain levels of complexity.
Certain levels of complexity, and
Yeah.
but Autopatch and move B and move BTS give you functionality that you don't have. So
Yep.
There are tools that are cloud-based that are evolving that give you additional functionality. So by all means, look into them.
Yeah.
Drivers, firmware, were a nightmare to do with ConfigMgr. They are a nightmare.
That's why there's community tools.
It-
The internet. for
It's
that.
gotten better with the
Yeah.
V3 catalog. It's still not easy, but by all, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on. We can at the end tag around and we can talk about this some more. I just want to make sure that Kim has some time to be grumpy at us. And I'll try and go through these last bits of things pretty simple, pretty quickly. If you ever had grabbed the official Microsoft PowerShell Intune samples, which I think a lot of people have, and then built on top of them, just note that there was this application ID that used to be kind of hard coded in it, and Microsoft apparently kind of just let that slide and enable those. They're going to fix that problem. And so again, if you have anything that you've built or something that's built on that you borrowed that's built on top of these things, and there's this hard code ID, that thing is going to stop working real soon here, as of April 1, in fact. So you're going to want to go ahead and update those. It's just a matter of what's the right word? Authorizing the PowerShell to connect to your Intune tenant or your Azure tenant, I should say, and do the things. And the default one or the initial one that was there and hard coded, that's going to die in a fire. I didn't even know this existed, but the Windows subsystem for Android apparently was a thing. I'm usually dealing with Windows subsystem for Linux, but apparently it was a thing, but it's not going to be a thing. So just a heads up that it is deprecated and will go away here. Eventually you can read for the details here. But if you have anything running on that, you're going to want to know and get rid of that. In the config manager space, this is a nice lead-in. There was a nice blog article here for update compliance reporting here, and there's actually, I think it was a two-parter. Nice little thing to read if you are doing update management within config manager. Lastly, what's new in Intune? A couple of different things for Windows Hello enrollment. You have some enhanced sign-in security, and you can, what was the other one? Oh, up here. You have some nice RBAC improvements. The other thing I would mention that I saw in here is, Cloud PKI is now official GA. I think last month we had talked about that the app catalog was GA'd, and that I think we might have said PKI was GA'd, but that actually apparently happened later in the month. So that's officially GA. And the one thing I do want to call out here is, yes, there is a little note here talking about .NET Framework. So they are recommending that you move up to, I think, at least .NET 4.7.2. Again, I don't want to belabor this point. You can go ahead and read it yourself. But if you, what's the right word? If you need to care about that, go ahead and care about that. What's new in Autopatch? So you actually kind of predated, what's the right? You beat me to the punch a little bit there, Adam. So there's a couple things that are in preview, so you can import your existing rings. So if you're currently using patching with Intune and you have existing rings for your patching, you can import those when you're on board to Autopatch and just inherit those rings. The thing I will say, because it came up in chat, is normally when you go ahead and do that, when you set up Autopatch, you don't have to automatically include every existing device, right? So you can set up Autopatch and it will set up everything with no devices in it. And so it's in theory, no changes will happen on the device level. And then you can decide, hey, I'm going to start piloting this with a group of devices by moving devices into those groups. So either one of those things are available to you. This is another one. There's a custom divide. I will say your patching cadence. Before Autopatch was very like 21 days. And that's when Autopatch was first released. That was kind of like, hey, within 21 days, 95% of all your devices will have the patch. Well, okay, there's certain businesses where 21 days is maybe too long or too short. And now you can go ahead and slap that in your, you can configure that yourself. And then as Adam said, this is really interesting. The time for reporting is going to be refreshing, is going to be reduced from 24 hours. Now that's on average, right? But down to 30 minutes, which is truly impressive. I haven't actually had a chance to test this out and see it, but that is exciting. It's for patching. This is a big one that we, Kim and I will talk about often. It's like, hey, I don't need everything in reporting to necessarily be instantaneously, but patching is one of those things, especially if you're expediting an update. Like, I need to know that this is happening, and I need to know it better than 24 to 48 hours. So excited to see that that's happening. Lastly, the last thing I have, and then we'll hand it over to Kim, is a bit of a shilling, sorry, but we did release custom apps. We GA'd that, so that is if you're using third-party apps, but you want, especially if you want the same user experience that people have with Patch My PC apps, you want them for your own custom applications. Either those are internally built applications, or whether those are just apps that aren't in our catalog yet. We now have the ability within a SaaS platform to go ahead and upload those things. So here's the link to the docs. We also did a webinar on this late last month. And so if you want to go spend an hour listening to Wout and some other people talk, there you have it. Okay, that was quick. Thank you. Kim, go ahead and figure out where the video button is on your laptop. And go
here. Actually, Brian, do you want to just click that link that I threw in the chat, and you can share that out for us, and we'll let Kim do the talking.
Okay, if I can find it.
So my co-hosts have given me incredible segues to talk about the things that keep me busy the last couple of years. So we've talked a little bit about Windows Defender application control. We've talked a little bit about the security of ConfigMgr. I've been that I would say lonely but loud voice in making more noise around co-management and what co-management brings you. A lot of the conversations that we've had, or that we are seeing, seem to come from, okay, cloud only is the new way to go. So, and if you talk to Microsoft about that, very often you get the question, if you talk about co-management, you get the question as to what are you missing? And there's one thing I wanna point out there is, when Microsoft folks ask you that, very often these are going to be PMs, and the reason they ask it is what they call, they don't want to leave the business. Right? So they want to collect your feedback. Okay. Unfortunately, if that happens often, or if you're not aware of what they're doing there, it's often construed or interpreted as, we're done. Everything is there. You should be doing this cloud only thing. Right. Which is not necessarily what they're trying to say, which is not necessarily what the current situation is. The second thing is, if you're not prepared for that question, what are you missing? And this is back from my very, very early days as an MVP. You're using a product, all of a sudden getting the question, and in this case, across two different products, if you will, what is missing is a very hard question to just answer from the top of your head. So we've built a session that we've been delivering at MMS and will be re-delivering in May. That gives 10 items that we believe are missing. And when I say missing, I mean missing or delivered by ConfigMgr in a co-management setting for customers that have already moved all of their sliders over to Intune. So everything that Intune can deliver has already been given to Intune. So this works for people that want to do MoveB and Autopatch. You've moved your workloads over, great. You've moved your application workloads over, great. We have another list of 10 items that we think are important that co-management still delivers to you. And again, this equally applies, because that's one of the biggest misconceptions ever, as far as I'm concerned, in our current fields. This equally applies to devices that are natively Azure AD or Entra ID, as it's now called, joined. Right? All of the co-management functionality works perfectly, even if your device is only Entra ID. It doesn't have to be Azure. So we've built that session. We've, after a couple of months, eventually turned it into a blog. And the blog is largely there so that if I have another debate discussion, whether online or in person, I can point people to, like, look, these are things that I'm missing, that I want, so that if I get the question again, what is missing, I can say this. This is what we need, before I can essentially completely shut down my ConfigMgr environment. It's functionality that makes my life a whole lot easier, that makes me a whole lot more powerful as an admin. And I'm not giving it up unless there's a counter functionality available in the cloud only world. So that's roughly what we did in the blog post. The blog post is now the overview of the 10 items. We'll probably over time go into every individual item and say, look, this is why this is important to us, what the value is that it brings, and then see what the counter offer, if there is a counter offer, is on the Intune side. One of the things that is hard for customers that have to do a whole bunch of things beyond just system management. I think a lot of people that are present here at campus largely do systems management as their main job. You have to keep up on top of all of these things, and you have to start comparing offering between two different solutions. That's incredibly hard. People often underestimate how much of their knowledge that they currently have means that they've tried a dozen other things before that until they figured out this is the best way to do it. Unless you're very, very community engaged, figuring out what the best way to do things is incredibly time consuming. Asking people to do that across two different products is an incredible challenge. So I'm at the Microsoft campus this week. I'm one of those advocates for all of those people that still see their ConfigMgr functionality as something they need. And I'm vocal about it. And I'm
Can confirm, Kim.
He is in fact vocal about it.
In actual fact.
And I'm being called out for being vocal about it, but I'll continue to be vocal about it because, well, I care for a couple of my direct customers, but I know there's a bunch of people out there that don't have the opportunity to be as vocal and as direct about this with Microsoft directly. So I'll continue to be vocal about it for myself and for everybody else who still thinks there's a ton of value there and wants it. And so that's what the blog post is about. I think the link is open, or at least is in chat. But the next time somebody asks you, what are you missing? By all means, just send them the link.
Yep.
Steal the 10 items. You don't necessarily have to forward them to my blog. I don't have sponsors on my blog, so it's not like I'm making money from the blog. So if you just want to steal the 10 items or steal the items that you care about, if it's not all 10 of them, or if you have additional items, by all means, let me know on Twitter or in the comment section of the blog or whatever. I'll happily add things to it if there's additional things that you care about that you believe I've missed. We don't consider ourselves the authority on everything that people might need. That's one of my other common themes is, I'm sorry, I don't know the requirements of every single business in the world. Unless I've talked to you and you've given me your requirements, it's very, very hard for me to say what you should be doing. Can you be a completely cloud-only shop? Sure, there's plenty of organizations out there that do that and do that successfully. just as, well, we talked about air gaps a couple of minutes ago. There's other environments that are going to need something on-prem for the better part of their future, if not eternity, if you're air gapped. So all of it depends on what do you need? What is your current situation? And I'll never, ever tell you, unless you engage me as a consultant and you tell me what your requirements are, I'll never, ever tell you what you actually have to do. Because I can't. I don't have the necessary information to do that. I can just tell you what some of the common options are, and you'll have to make your decision, which is your prerogative as an IT professional, because that's what all of you are. You're IT professionals, so it's up to you to make up your own mind what it is that you need.
And I'll say from the Microsoft side, the amount of attention we put into community feedback and customer feedback in terms of priority of what we work on is extremely high. So the feedback that you provide, the pain points, the reasoning, that helps us as we prioritize the work that we go after, the features that we release. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll shamelessly plug our Windows Defender application control training that goes on second half of April.
Yeah. Doubly so if you're building PowerShell scripts.
Where can they go sign up for that, Kim?
We've partnered with Johan Ouwermark via Monstra. Johan Ouwermark is going to host the platform in our lab environments, and we'll have a masterclass there. So www.viamonstra.com. We're one of the master classes that Johan is doing now. He has them on Intune, on ConfigMgr. There's a couple of other ones that he runs.
Lots of great content there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Cool.
something else. Shall we wrap up, Bryan? See you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next month. And thanks again, Adam and Kim, for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Talk to you later.
Hey, everyone.
I mean, I'm looking directly into Jake's. I'm looking directly into Jake's 4 eyes right now, and I'm confirmed that the internet was a mistake.